Good morning, a Monday morning, a new week, a new day, a new Ben Garcia show. Shedeur Sanders falling in the draft. Could he be the Cardinals' next franchise quarterback? Should they even do it? And also, the Phoenix Suns made some lineup changes, and it's really just more of the same. Let's talk about that next.
The Ben Garcia show. Yeah. Best show in the land. Yup. Listen. Come and get your information from Ben Garcia. Get the latest on your quarterback, running backs, and receivers. Tune in, so any other show you don't need them. Any news that he giving out, please just believe him. Giving out the latest prediction and top-notch analysis. Wanna hear the truth, better have thick skin like calluses. The latest move that your team just made can be damaging. The dudes ain't speaking no facts, they just be rambling. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. Yeah. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. The Ben Garcia show.
What is up, guys? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia show. Thank you so much for making me a part of your day, however you're watching, however you're following the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. It takes literally half a second to go down in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, depending on where and when you're scrolling, and hit the like button. I'm not going to beg for it, but I am going to ask politely. And if you do so, then you get to know, you get to have that good, fuzzy, warm feeling of knowing you were the person to help make my dreams come true. With all that being said, all jokes aside, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, and follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. You guys have been following me in truckloads. I mean, 3 months ago, people didn't even like and retweet my things, and now I get a decent amount of traction on Twitter, more than I've ever thought I would do. So appreciate you guys for doing that as well. Anyways, it is a busy Monday. There is a lot of things going on, which is always kind of frustrating when it comes to Wednesday and Thursday, and we're just sort of making up things on this show, because that's kind of what it is in the football offseason. There's not a lot of big stories that you can really sink your teeth into. And so when I saw this yesterday, listen, some people might not like it, but I love discussing these sort of things on this show because I like to get out in front of things. I don't necessarily care to be right, but there is something to being quote unquote first. Like, I don't care that other people did this topic weeks ago as well as me, but I do feel like I was the first person to point out the Max Crosby thing. And then everybody else followed. Not necessarily me, but maybe they were later to the story or later to the idea. So bear with me here when it comes to a NFL draft story, especially after last week when I did a lot of defending of Kyler Murray. I know sometimes people watch the show and they are like worried that I'm flip-flopping. Let me be abundantly clear. Kyler Murray is absolutely up for sale, but only so if you blow our socks off with an offer. Like $1 billion, a couple of firsts, a couple of seconds, like an insane haul. And people in the comment section will say, no team would ever do that. And I would say, okay, cool. Then he's not for sale. You don't want to overpay for him. We're not willing to give him to you. That's where I'm at with Kyler. Kyler is certainly good enough to be the Cardinals franchise guy. And the Arizona Cardinals should respect that he keeps them relevant. But this idea that he's not up for sale is insane, because for a haul, he absolutely is. The analogy I used last week is if I had a home and it was really nice and I paid $500,000 for it and I loved living there, location was good, kids loved it, next to the school, all the good things, playground across the street from me. No, my house isn't up for sale. But if someone knocks on my door and gives me $1.5 million for it, guess what, honey? We're moving. So this idea that he can't be for sale, it is nonsense. But that's not what I'm kind of leaning towards when it comes to this story. And that's this. Yesterday, I saw on social media, and social media is a cesspool of sometimes nonsense. Sometimes I don't even believe whatever the bleep is going on. And this kind of falls into that category. But Shedeur Sanders was making some headlines, maybe for not the very good reasons. I would argue for bad reasons. But yesterday I saw this, and I could believe it to a very minor detail. And here's where it goes. It said, Shedeur Sanders is reportedly, quote, not the type of quarterback the majority of NFL teams are looking for right now, according to Mel Kiper Jr., ESPN draft analyst. He is the lead draft guy for ESPN. He's on there every year for 4 straight days, does the NFL draft coverage, and then goes away for the rest of the year. One NFL scout reporter believes Sanders' true value lies somewhere between picks 15 and 30 in the first round. If his name was Shedeur Williams, we'd be having a totally different conversation. Anonymous NFL executive. Scouts are currently divided on Shedeur, with some giving him high-end comps to Tom Brady, while some are giving him a larger frame Teddy Bridgewater at his ceiling. Not to mention, some NFL teams are having concerns centered around Sanders' priorities and character. All right. So right off the bat, the Cardinals are drafting pick 16, and you see that his true value lies in 15 to 30. Here's the problem with that one quote. True value lies 15 to 30. Quarterbacks' true value never actually goes exactly where they're drafted. They almost always get drafted an insane amount higher than they probably should. I mean, Jackson Dart is a guy that I've repeatedly said on the show, man, I like his arm, like his mobility, big kid, strong. Second or third round, I could definitely buy into him as the Cardinals' potential succession plan to Kyler Murray. But if he's not there, then whatever, you go somewhere else. You do have Kyler. But quarterbacks fly up draft boards. If Jackson Dart was a top 10 pick, I would be 0% surprised, but about 50% disgusted, because that's an insane proposition to ask for a guy like Jackson Dart to be a part of. But the Shedeur Sanders thing is interesting, because if the rumors are true, and I'm not necessarily sure I believe them, because rumors are just that, and things get out if somebody wants it out. And even my guy Michael in the chat is saying he'll be gone way before 16. Sure, probably true. And I'm not going to sit here and explain to you why I think that he's 1,000% going to be a top, or he's going to fall in this draft. But let's just explore the avenue. If Shedeur Sanders falls to 14, 13, maybe even 12, or he falls all the way to 16 as a whole, would you consider trading up a few spots for Shedeur Sanders? Would you consider drafting him at 16 and say he does fall that far? Because I don't think it would be, I do think it would be insane for him to fall that far, but I don't know if it would be completely unheard of. We've seen quarterbacks fall before, and we've repeatedly said it's not a great quarterback draft. It's just solely not. So Shedeur Sanders, I would draft him or trade up 1 or 2, potentially 3 spots, and draft Shedeur Sanders as the Cardinals' next franchise quarterback. Now, oftentimes people take that as I hate Kyler Murray, which is not true. Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. He's probably nothing more than that, and he keeps them relevant. And I don't want to see Kyler walk out the door just to walk out the door. There needs to be something in place. And what Shedeur Sanders does is probably have the same ceiling as Kyler. A good player, but he's also a bigger and stronger kid. That's something Kyler doesn't have. He has mobility in the pocket. He's accurate. And also, I just think he's kind of a winner. And he plays really well. He plays the position with confidence. I like his ability to come in, stabilize the quarterback position for the Arizona Cardinals, and not only that, but he resets your quarterback pay clock, where you're not paying him anything for 5 years. Imagine the team you could put around him. Imagine all the money you have this year, which is like $50+ million or something insane. Imagine if you add the fact that you won't be paying a quarterback to that fold. Shedeur Sanders does make a decent amount of sense for the Cardinals if he falls to that pick, or if you only have to trade up a couple of spots, probably no more than 3, because you don't want to give up an insane amount of draft capital for someone that we know probably isn't an elite prospect, Andrew Luck level prospect. He's probably not that guy. But his ability to move around in the pocket, be accurate, win games with kind of a subpar Colorado roster outside of Travis Hunter, and reset that quarterback cap situation clock where you're not paying him anything, I would explore that avenue if I was the Arizona Cardinals. And I think it's kind of crazy for people just to dismiss that. Now, is Shedeur going to fall that far? No, probably not. But what I'd like to do is get ahead of these things, is talk about them so that later on, if it happens, we're not behind. And so Shedeur Sanders to the Arizona Cardinals, I don't think is an insane pipe dream story. Cam Ward is clearly seen as the number one guy, and he's not even this elite level prospect that some think Shedeur Sanders should have been. It's just not a good quarterback draft. But 1.5 quarterbacks tend to work out in the NFL draft each and every year. And Shedeur Sanders, if he falls in what I believe his true value range is, which is like a late first-round pick, but because of quarterback inflation, he's almost always going to go way higher than that. I think that it is an interesting situation to explore for the Arizona Cardinals, and I would absolutely do it, especially if he fell to 16 or if you only had to give up a third-round pick and your first-round pick for someone else's pick 13 or pick 12. That's where it makes sense for me, and that's what I would do if I was the Arizona Cardinals. Because as much as I do like Kyler, and before I was a huge Kyler stan, reset the quarterback clock for a bigger, not a faster, but a bigger, stronger guy with still a lot of mobility, I like that avenue. And the idea of potentially putting a real massive elite team around him because of all the money you'd have is an interesting place to be. You know, that wasn't the only story on the docket over the weekend. The Phoenix Suns. Feels like you have to take like that deep breath before you talk about the Phoenix Suns because they are so exhausting to watch. You know, I think, let me start here. Early on in the season, I was all in on this. All right, we got to make a change. I was the one that advocated for Bradley Beal to go to the bench. It didn't work out. But to be fair, in my defense, nothing has really worked out for this team. Nothing. This team is somehow worse than it was last year with what I believe is a significantly better roster. There is no reason for this team to be a out-of-play-in positioning team. This team has got talent. And oftentimes, Suns Twitter is crazy, man. Crazy. I saw someone tweet the other day. I don't even know who it was, but I saw this tweet from one of the bigger Suns accounts, and it was like, well, this Suns team would just be a lot better if they had more wings and less guards. Yeah, duh, man. Duh. You're telling me this team could use some size, some length, and some rebounding ability? Yeah. Duh. You're not necessarily breaking any news here. This Suns team needs to get bigger, and they need to get better defensively. Instead, they've got nothing but guards. And people are like, those same accounts are like, well, listen, it's the Suns front office's fault for not getting more guard or not getting more bigger wings. Do you think the Suns front office is so based on a bunch of buffoons and employed by a bunch of buffoons that they don't know that 6'8 wings, 6'9 wings, 6'7 wings are valuable in the NBA? Do you think right now, if they could have Tumani Kamara or Cam Johnson or Mikal Bridges or whoever, name a good wing player, you don't think that they would rather have that over 6'3", what am I saying? Over 6'0" Tyus Jones? Yeah. The Suns roster construction is not very good, but it's not because the Suns front office doesn't recognize that they could use a Cam Johnson, that they could use a Mikal Bridges. This Suns team is not good because they had to give up those assets to get the players that they have. That being Kevin Durant. So they're stuck with what they have. And also, do you know what every team would use two of in the NBA? A 6'8" wing that can shoot the three ball and defend. They're much more valuable than you think. So this ridiculous, just dumb revisionist history that continues happening with this Suns fan base is just absurd. Which is why last week when we were on Locked On Suns advocating for what the Phoenix Suns have to do, and a lot of it was, well, you know what? They got to move Tyus Jones to the bench, and I agreed with them. I don't think that that's necessarily the wrong thing to say or agree to or disagree with, but I mean, nothing is going to change this team. It is such an unfortunate thing to say, and I've been largely optimistic about the Suns' future. I don't think that they are just screwed beyond fixing in the offseason. I think you can move Kevin Durant and get a good amount of assets back to help this team. But I've just got to be honest with you guys. This team is not getting fixed. And I think you know that. I just don't think you want it to be true. Because we had higher expectations coming into this season, and having a true point guard in Tyus Jones, and having Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and a star-loaded roster, and Bradley Beal, people continue to tell me was washed. It turns out he wasn't. It's just not a good fit here in Phoenix, which I've been trying to tell everyone for weeks on end. What am I saying? Months on end. And that brings me to my last point. My last point of the show, my last point of the day. I don't want to admit this. I don't like this. It's not fun. It's not a good take. It's not something that I think is spicy and will get clicks. I just think the Suns team is done. They're not making the play-in, and they're sure as hell not making the playoffs. Look at some of the teams ahead of them. The Kings, who, they've got star players, LaVine, DeRozan. I don't think the Kings are going to win the championship or even make it past the first round or even make it out of the play-in tournament. But they're better than the Suns. The Dallas Mavericks, once Anthony Davis comes back, much better than the Suns. Golden State Warriors, when they added Jimmy, got some real juice to them, better than the Suns. And whatever teams ahead of them at that point, I forgot who it was. It's the Mavericks, Warriors. Who was the other team? I literally had it in the back of my head 2 seconds ago. But those teams are just better than the Suns. So it was the Clippers, Timberwolves, Mavericks, Golden State Warriors, Sacramento Kings. Tell me which one of those teams. Clippers, 6 seed, Timberwolves, 7, Mavericks, 8, Golden State Warriors, 9, Sacramento Kings, 10, and then the Phoenix Suns at 11. Tell me which one of those teams the Phoenix Suns are definitely better than. And with the hardest schedule remaining in the NBA regular season, the Phoenix Suns have the hardest. Not only are they the worst team out of those 5 teams I just laid out, Clippers, Wolves, Mavericks, Warriors, and Sacramento Kings. The Phoenix Suns are not only the worst team out of all of those, they have the hardest schedule remaining. They're not making the play-in. And I got to be honest with you, mercifully, I'm kind of okay with that. I don't want to watch this team make the play-in and then lose. I don't want to watch this team make the play-in, win the play-in, and then go to the NBA playoffs as the 7 or 8 seed and get absolutely dismantled by the Oklahoma City Thunder and whoever the heck the 2nd seed is going to be. They'd get dismantled by both teams. They maybe win 1 game against the Thunder, maybe. And if the Memphis Grizzlies right now, I can see the Suns getting hot and winning 2 games. But the other 4 games that they lose won't be close. And I don't think they're even going to win 6 games. I'm sorry. I don't even think they're going to take the Grizzlies to 6 games. Or whoever it is. But I could see a Kevin Durant or a Devin Booker get a little hot, and that's what happens. It's over, man. It's over. This team has no shot of being competitive. They've got no shot of making the play-in. They don't fit. They're small. Defensively, especially on the perimeter, they're not just lackluster. They are downright awful. They can't box out to save their lives. And most of the time, they're not playing with a ton of effort. And Coach Budenholzer, who I don't blame for the Suns season going awry, his rotations don't make any sense. Ryan Dunn will play for 7 minutes, and then, Bol Bol play for 7 minutes, and then the next day they're both playing 30 minutes. None of it makes any sense. And it's just the reasoning why this team, I can't take it seriously. Not just as a playoff team, but as a play-in team. And it's why it's done. And it probably needs to happen this way. Unless, of course, the Suns make the playoffs, I'm, of course, rooting for that to happen. So a 1-6 seed, I'm rooting for that. But if that doesn't happen, I am sort of rooting for the Phoenix Suns as a Phoenix Suns media member and as a Phoenix Suns fan, as someone who's been watching this team my entire life. I am kind of rooting for this team to miss the play-in. And it's like, why would you say that? Because I want clarity. Matt Ishbia clearly did not get it through his head. Him and the Suns front office clearly didn't get it through their head that last year when they won 0 games in the playoffs last season, they decided to run it back. They thought they needed a point guard. It didn't work. And so I want no room left for a potential this Phoenix Suns big three and roster could work. I want them to flame out unless they make the playoffs. I want them to flame out so horrendously that the Suns front office has no reason but to blow this thing up and completely retool it and turn it into a team that can actually be competitive next year. Not win a championship, but be competitive. I'm over it. I'm over guessing if this team is ever going to figure it out. They're not going to. We have 2.5 years of data with, Devin Booker, in the Devin Booker and Kevin Durant era. 2.5 years of data. It's not working. This team's not working. It's time to move on. And unless they go on some sort of heater and they make the playoffs, and sure, I can get back on board, but I just don't buy that. I do hope that they just flame out horrendously. Flame out horrendously. Just so this team has clarity, knows exactly what they are, and that is not close, and allows them to retool and be a competitive team in the future. Because right now, what it is not working. And I don't like rooting for that. That sucks. I don't want to be a team that's no fun to watch, but I'm looking towards the future. And that's what you should be doing too. All right, guys, thank you so much for making me a part of your day. A little bit of a lighter crowd today, but either way, I don't care. I'm just thankful that I can come on here and talk sports in the morning with you guys. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend about the Ben Garcia Show. My numbers have been awesome, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for that, guys. I love coming on here and just talking ball with you guys. I had a meeting on Friday. Someone wanted to sponsor the show. I'm not so sure if I'm ready to sell out just yet. Maybe I'll wait a little bit longer, but I appreciate you guys making me a part of your day. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend about Ben Garcia Show, and follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. I'm Benjamin Garcia. Until tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 a.m. local time, it has been the Ben Garcia Show.